Hi guys. So in today's session, we will remove all our file access code and replace it with the proper database. Okay. So before we get started, you can look at all the code at this URL, github.com/rawcodehq/item. Okay. And this was how our application looked before. And now what we're going to do is we are going to replace all our all our persistence code with the database access. So a quick recap of what we did earlier. Earlier we we allowed storing of codes using a flat file, using a text file. So we stored all the codes in a text file. And let's look at that text file. So this was the text file, and it had all the codes stored in it. Okay. Now this is not the best way to do it, but it's a very simple way, and that's why we looked at that. And let's quickly look at the routes. I want to create a new code and see how that behaves. So if you go to codes slash u, that allows us to code of Monday, right? So it allows us to create a code. And there's a problem here. It says, oh, so yeah, there's a. So I made some changes in our file offline, and so the refactoring added a bug, and I'm going to remove that. Okay. So now if I resubmit this, it says code of Monday has been added as the latest code. And if you look at the file, if I reload this file, it's gonna have that. Okay. And this is not the best way to go about storing codes. So what we will do is we will remove this file, and we will remove the code model. Okay. And actually, yeah. Well, yeah. Let's just remove this model, and I'm going to create a new class called code, which is going to do the same things which our code did. Okay. All right. So Rails comes with a lot of helper utilities, and one of them is called Rails generators. Okay. So Rails generator. Well, okay, where are my Rails generators? Okay, so Rails generator, you can use Rails G or Rails generate to list this help. Okay, so here if you see, these are the available generators for us. Okay, now what is a generator? A generator is a utility which creates a simple simple code. So it helps us create code quickly. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to use a generator called model. Okay. And I'm going to say, so every generator has its own arguments. Okay. So here if you type Rails generate model, it shows a lot of help. Okay. So if you look at this specific example, it says it's well, let's look at this example. Okay, so here, actually let me look at the first example listed here. So these are all the options, and okay, this is the good one. So this is a Rails command, Rails generate model, and it's creating a post entity or a post table which has a title value and a body value. Okay, so what we want is we want a code. So Rails generate model, and we want a code which is going to have, if you remember from our earlier session, a code has some text. Okay, so I could name it body. Okay, so which should be a text column. Okay. And that's it for now, right? So when we run this, if you look at the printed lines, it says it created this file, db migrate. It created a file called app models code, and it created a few more test files. So let's look at the code.rb file. Okay, so here we deleted our code file and we let Rails create a new code file, and that is empty, right? If you look at it, it doesn't have anything. But if you look at it carefully, it is inheriting from something called application record. Okay, and application record is a class which is inheriting from ActiveRecord base. Okay, so ActiveRecord is a component of Rails which allows you to easily interact with the database. Okay, so anyway, let's okay, so if I refresh my application, it says migrations are pending. Okay, so now what this does is, if you look at it, it created a code file, right? And it also created a create codes.rb file in db migrate folder, right? Now, if you look at the db migrate folder, there is a file here called create codes, right? And it also has a method called change, which has some code inside it, right? So if you look at this, this is Ruby code, which seems like it is creating a table called codes, and it's also creating a column called body, whose type is text. Okay, so we'll get into more details about migrations in a later session. But for now, what a migration allows you to do is it allows you to create a table inside a database. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to quickly connect to our Iroh development database from our SQL terminal. And if I look at all the tables here, if I look at all the tables here, there are only two tables, and these are ActiveRecord internal tables. Okay, so we don't have any tables. Now, when we run rake db migrate, what it's going to do is it's going to create this table called codes, and if you see, that's what it did. It says create table codes executed, and it was migrated. And now if you look at the list of tables here, you see that we have two new entries. One is the codes table, and the other is a codes sequence, which is something which gives you new IDs, okay, and incrementing IDs. Okay, and if I look at the codes table, it says it has an ID column, it has a body, it has created at, updated at. Okay, now you may say, well, I did not ask it to create an ID column or a created at or an updated at, right? So if you look at the migration in Rails, there is a convention which says every table is going to have an ID. Okay, so that's how the IDs come about. And we also have a row here, a line here which says t.timestamps. So this is the one which created the created at and updated at columns. Okay, now if you don't want those, you can just comment out this or delete this and rerun the migrations. So let's quickly do that. So I'm going to comment that out. And so another thing which Rails migrations allow you to do is they allow you to roll back the migrations. So if I roll back a migration, that table should be gone. So now if I try to describe the codes table, it says there's no relation named codes, right? So now that we've commented out the timestamps, let's run the migrations again. And now if we look at the codes table, it doesn't have the created at or updated at. Okay, but in many cases it's a good thing to have timestamps for created at and updated at. So what we're going to do is we're going to roll back the migrations again and run them again, migrate them again. Okay, so that's good. All right, so now we have the codes table with the timestamps. Okay, so all good, right? And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a Rails console. And so the thing is, if you look at the code class, it doesn't have anything, right? But since it is inheriting from something called ActiveRecord uh, through application record, it gets a lot of functions and methods. Okay, for instance, if you say code.new, it's going to create a class, an object with an ID, a body, a created at, and updated at. Now you may say, well, I did not specify any of that anywhere, right? So where the heck is ID or created at or updated at or body, right? So Rails is very intelligent in that it fetches the metadata, which is information about all the data from the database, because we already have a table called codes, and that table has a column called ID, a column called body, a column called created at, updated at. That's how Rails knows that a code should have those attributes. Okay? All right. So now, if I create a new code and say Iroh is awesome, right? And this is how you create a code in an object in Ruby. Okay. So now, if I save this, if you see, it's actually printing a SQL statement, which is here to help us understand what's going on. Okay. So what it's doing is it's inserting a code into the database, and if we try to look at the code again, it shows that the ID has been set to 1, right? So if you look at the ID, it has been set to 1. The body is set to Iroh is awesome, and the created at has been set to the time when it was inserted. And updated at is also the same because we just created this once. Now if I update this, if I say q.body is Iroh is very awesome, right? If I say that, and if I save it, right? So again, the same method is being added by ActiveRecord. Okay, now it has updated it, and now if you look at Q, the created at has 542, 43, and the updated at has 543, 34. Okay, so different timestamp. All right. So created at is when it was inserted. Updated at is when it was last updated. Okay, awesome. So this is all good. Now what we want to do quickly is we want to change our code in our codes controller, right, to actually save to the database, right? So here we need to make a bit of change. So we need to say body is that, and then code.shape. And now if you see this, we actually named our method earlier following the ActiveRecord conventions. Okay, so that's good. And so let's go ahead and save this. I'm going to say code of Monday from Iroh. Okay. Now if I save it, awesome. So if you see, we just replaced all our database code, access code, storage code from files to ActiveRecord databases, and it's all working fine with minimal changes because we put all our code in the code model and because we followed the ActiveRecord conventions. Okay, so if you look at index.html, all right. So if I go to routes and there is this page welcome, right? So if we go there, you see codes is being set to code.all, and incidentally, not incidentally, I actually followed the ActiveRecord conventions. So ActiveRecord adds a method called all, a function called all on the code class, which will return a bunch of codes. Okay, so because we followed that convention in our controller and view, we are able to just replace the code with the ActiveRecord model, ActiveRecord version, right? So this is all working fine, and let me just quickly add a link here to /code/new and say new code. Right? So now, if I go to new code and say Iroh says Rails is good, and it has been added. Okay. Now a problem we had earlier was, we had when we had multiple lines, right? Iroh says multiple lines good, right? So when we had multiple lines, it was creating multiple codes. But here, it's not doing that, right? It's just because database persistence is much more advanced than just file persistence, right? So, all right. So to do a quick recap, what we did was we replaced all our code with database access code, right? And let's do a quick diff of what's going on. Okay. So I'm going to close all of this, and I'm going to add this. So I use something called Git for version control, and we can probably have a session on that later. But for now, it has a neat way to check what has changed. So if you look at this, in the controller, okay, so the left side is what was there before, and right side is what is currently present. Okay, so if you look at the controller code, we just added a body colon to the code.new function call. Okay, so this is the convention of, so the stuff on the right side is the convention of ActiveRecord. So when you create a new object, you pass name colon value, and so on and so forth. Okay, and the next file which was changed was, come on, so it's gonna, all right, so this, okay, and the next file which was changed was the code class, right? So we got rid of all this code because initialize will be added by ActiveRecord, and .body will be added by ActiveRecord, save was added by ActiveRecord, code.all was added by ActiveRecord, right? And ActiveRecord actually adds a lot more methods. Okay, so to do a quick check, we can say code.methods.sort, and if you look at it, so this is a very big number, right? So these are the methods. Some of these are Ruby methods, but many of these are methods added by ActiveRecord. Okay, and if you look at q.methods, so these are other methods. So if you look at the number of methods here, so what I'm going to do here, all right, so this is fine, right? So ActiveRecord adds a lot of methods, right? So that's that. All right, so we got to replace all this code. We got to delete all this code and just replace it with the ActiveRecord implementation, because ActiveRecord gives us all of that for free, right? Okay, so that was the other change. And what else has changed? All right, so where is that? Okay, come on. All right, so we added the link for new code, and we got rid of the codes.txt because we don't need a file to store all of this anymore. And we added the migration, which actually creates the table. So this migration is a two-way thing. It allows us to create a table. If you want to run the migration, it allows us to roll back this change. Again, the reason we have the rollback ability is, let's say you've written some migrations, you've executed them, but something doesn't work out. So you want to undo that change, right? So this has the functionality to run the migrations and undo the migration, right? So that is called rollback. Okay, so that's that. And then the schema file is changed. Okay, so this is another thing, db schema. If you look at the path, so this is another file which has the full shape of your database. Okay, and if you look at this, it says there is a table called codes. It has the body column and all of that, right? So that's that. We'll go into more detail in a later session. And then it has added some files for test. Okay, so that's it. And that brings us to the end of episode 3, and I'm going to continue building we're going to continue building this, and meanwhile go ahead and look at the code at https://github.com/code/io. Okay, so that's it for today. I'll see you guys in the next session.